Hi there, this is Dani, and I have a real-time update for you. I'm shooting this video today and posting this video today. On this channel, the videos don't need a lot of editing, and I don't spend a lot of time on them or anything. It's really more of like a stream of consciousness, going through transformation in the moment and sharing that journey so that it might help someone else, right? Because we all tend to find ourselves in a lot of the same situations, dealing with the same things. And so maybe if I'm talking about eating, yours is in a different area, or if I'm talking about challenges at work, maybe yours is challenges in a relationship. It can still all be beneficial, and it's all good reminders. And if you're seeing this, and there's probably a reason, maybe it might be beneficial to hear it. So I'm going to process something with you right now. And so let's do like a real-time update of what's going on in my journey with DigiKey. I completed the 2 weeks of training, and last night was my first night on the floor with a mentor so that I could ask questions. But I was basically doing the job all night long for 8 hours for the first time last night. Now, when I first got here, you might have seen my kind of rant that was all like, I'm disappointed, I'm irritated, I'm all of this stuff, right? So a lot of that initial stuff has been worked through. Okay, so the old me scenario would have been come into the situation, hate it, say I hate it, and leave, or say I hate it and think I have to stay, and so I'm going to stay and continue to hate it and continue to build resentment. Okay, so that was really me. That, like, the initial me was like hate it and stay, and then grow to resent everything and everyone because I'm negative all the time. My second stage of evolution would have been just leave. You know, don't do something you hate, just leave. My third state of evolution, or whatever we're calling this, I just made that up. But where I am now, the thing is, okay, so I know I was guided here. So I know I'm supposed to be here at least for a time. And I also know that, that every challenge that we have is perfectly designed to come up for us, to teach us what we need to know in the moment, and to help us grow, and to help us get ready for the next thing that's coming. I don't know that, but I believe that, okay? And I choose to believe that. I don't have any way of knowing. I don't think anybody necessarily does know exactly how everything works, but that's how I choose to view it, because it's an empowering way to look at the world for me, and it helps empower me in my daily living. And that's what I care about, because I care about going through this experience and growing and being all that I can be, being the highest contribution, following the highest calling. I believe that for me, and I believe that I'm here to not necessarily transform or change into something, but to discover what was there all along, what gets buried in us, right? Under all the conditioning and all the other stuff that parents and society and everything tell us. But the true essence of me as this, spiritual being, having a regular experience here, having a material experience in existence. So that is it. So I know I'm here for a reason. So the big ball of I hate it here, I hate it here, I need to leave, is starting to dissipate just because I'm doing the work. And here's the work. The first work you saw was in another video where I talked about being irritated, and I talked about the fear that was underlying that disappointment and that anger and that resentment. And it was the fear of not enough, the fear of lack, the fear of not having financial resources to take care of me and my family. So that was a huge part of it, and it continues to unravel, because when I look at the numbers, I'm like, I could just leave right now if I wanted to, but it would be pulling me deeper into somewhere I don't want to go, which is giving up more of that little nest egg that I have left, giving up more of that security. And I don't want to make that step. So the deal that I have made is, yes, I can leave if it's horrible and I need to, I'm going to leave. But if I can stick it out, then I'm going to stick it out at least until I find something else, right? But there's still good stuff. There's still juicy stuff here for me because I'm getting so much from this learning. And so when that big part dissolved and some of the anger and some of the negativity went away, I was able to start to unravel this great big ball of just generic kind of hate and see where it's all coming from. Okay, what is it about it that I'm in resistance to? What is it about it that I say I hate? And what can we see about that? What is it here to teach me? Everything else, right? So one of the first things is that even before I even started work, the weather is I almost said is devastating. That's too dramatic a word. The weather is not devastating, but the weather has an effect on me and my state of mental health, my state of preparation for the world, right? Like when you start your day and you're like, boom, I got it going on, I'm feeling good, and then something kind of crappy happens, you're like, it's like, water off your back, no big deal, just slides right off like the duck's back or whatever, right? So that's the way it happens. When you are depleted and feeling sad and feeling depressed or whatever, right? Then something bad happens and then it's like, oh, this is even more terrible, right? Like, so it's the same thing can happen, but if you're in a good place, it doesn't affect you much. And if you're in a really challenged place, it can seem like the end of the world. And so that's what I started to notice, is that's definitely where I was. And the weather has a big impact on that. Now, being a nomad, I can choose not to live in places that have terrible weather. And when they do, I can choose to not be there, theoretically. But I have made this commitment, sort of. I won't call it really commitment. I've set an intention to do this for 3 months. And so, but when I set that intention, I really thought that the highs were supposed to be more like 50s and 60s than teens and 20s and 30s. And here's the thing about the weather. The weather affects me greatly. The weather here has been terrible, but as I'm processing all of this, I'm looking at it like it is spring. Even if it feels like winter here, it is spring. It will get better. The weather is going to get better. I know that it is. Of course it is. We're on a warming trend, not a colding trend. We're not in fall going into winter. We're in spring coming eventually to summer, right? So that part of it that I hate is going to get better. And so that's a small piece of encouragement. Another thing, I start to look at this ball of hate, like, what do I really hate, right? So is it that, doing my little scans and looking for my stuff, is it really that I just hate that whole process, that it's so boring, it can't keep me engaged, and I start to watch the clock and I feel like a minute is an hour, like that whole thing getting sucked in. I'm like, you know what? So much of that, a lot of that, is not knowing what I'm doing yet and having every single order that doesn't go perfectly is kind of like, every order that doesn't go perfectly is like, oh, why is this happening? Why isn't there inventory when they says there should be inventory, or whatever, those things that happen when you're in a place where you're pulling orders and stuff, right? So those things that happen that are exceptions to the general kind of flow of how things work, or working with getting a ticket for a certain product that's harder to deal with, that is frustrating and kind of irritating and maybe intricate to deal with and takes a lot of time. So I started to look at Is it the overall flow of this that is really driving me crazy? Well, not necessarily, because I'm still so new, and because those exceptions are still like this big learning thing, like, okay, pull out your notes, okay, get some help, okay, go through these 10 steps or whatever it is, right? So there are just many challenges in the learning process because it's kind of an intricate thing here. And so I'm challenged by that because, like most people, I like knowing what I'm doing. And the kind of learning that I want to do. See, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning something. Right now I'm reading 2 books to help me learn, right, and grow. I'm always learning something. I'm always expanding in some way. This kind of learning, though, is the kind of learning that doesn't interest me. It doesn't excite me. Like if you had me take a personality test, you know how like back in high school, they had us all take these tests that gave you this big readout on careers that might serve you, that you might be interested in based on your kind of characteristics and your personality traits and stuff like that. This would probably be one of the last jobs that would ever come up on my like personality thing. Like it's not something that I'm drawn to. It's not anything that I'm interested in. And sure, that would have been valuable information to think about before I came here. But here's another thing that's interesting is I'm such an overwhelming optimist that I know myself enough to know that this kind of work isn't like appealing to me in any way. Just, for like, I hear people and they're like, oh yeah, have fun out there. I'm like, have fun. Like I might be able to tolerate it, but I can't see myself having fun actually doing it. Now, if I were in that environment and had people around me where we could kind of have fun, or we could, chit chat while we were doing our work, or share experiences, or just, go back and forth, even if it's about work or whatever. Not that I want to be talking all the time, but I mean, if I had some camaraderie, if I had some connection, had some humor with some people around me or something, that would bring a lot to the table. And then I can see getting satisfaction. But here's the thing. I'm so optimistic that I looked at this job and I thought, I can do it. It's going to check off so many of my boxes. And I thought, I can do it. I didn't think I'll love it, but I thought it can be fun if I get the right people and the right thing. So hugely optimistic. So as I'm dissolving this ball of like stuff I hate, I realize that it's like, it's not stuff I want to learn, but I need to learn it to do the job. And then once the learning curve is more over, it won't ever be over. There'll always be things, but it'll be much more of a comfort level where most of the time I know how to deal with exceptions that happen and I know how to deal with things. So anyway, if that's really the part that I hate, which I can't right now distinguish, I think it more is that I don't know what to do, and that's frustrating more than the regular everyday stuff that's going to continue to happen. So that's a matter of training, that's a matter of experience. So again, along with the weather, this is something that will improve over time if I stick it out. Here's the third big thing in the ball of hate. The third big thing in the ball of hate is I am a large woman, okay? I am very big-bodied, and I have a lot of weight that I carry around. It doesn't really matter how much, but I have a lot of weight that I carry around, and we're working on concrete, and it is walking and standing on concrete 8 hours a day. Now in training, at most I had out on the floor was more like 6 hours, because we're always doing just a little training in the morning and then we'd go on the floor sometimes. So yesterday was my first full day of the full 8 hours. I took ibuprofen at lunch. I was in so much pain by the time that day was over. I've been noticing that after about 2 hours, or somewhere in the first 2 hours, I start to really feel the pain. And I feel pain in my lower back and in my feet and ankles. And those are the primary places. Also, my muscles are very, very sore, but muscle soreness to me is actually almost feels good. It's like after a really good workout, when you're a little bit sore, then you know that you really gave it your all, and it feels good to know your muscles are repairing themselves because you did some damage, right? Like you did a little shred or whatever, right? So so the muscle pain that I have really actually psychologically feels good to me, because I know I'm building some strength. But the pain in my back and my feet last night was bad enough to make me cry when I got to the van, and I was sitting there after my day. I was just crying because of the pain, and because of with every movement that I made, like even just sitting in the van and getting up into the van, and then sitting there for a few minutes crying, and then starting the van and moving my foot to the pedal, like everything hurt. Everything hurt. And that's rough. And here's the other thing. When your body is in pain, it's so hard to have a great attitude about everything else. So you've got all these other challenges, and then you add to it the fact that my body's in pain after the first hour and a half, 2 hours. And a decent amount of pain, a very decent amount of pain. It's hard to do anything with joy and happiness when your body is in pain with every single step, and not even with every step, but when you're just standing in place and all that weight on the lower back, right? And I do the things where, the thing I learned, when I was pregnant, to kind of tip the pelvis in, for you ladies out there, to kind of lower that, bring in that lower part of the back and scrunch it in. I'm doing it right now, to stretch it, and just to kind of I'll step over to the side and I'll do some stretches and just get through it. But here's the other thing, is I'm unraveling this ball of hate. That's another thing that I truly think will get better. It should get better as I get more into shape, and as I get more used to this. It should get better. It won't always be this painful. If it were always this painful, then I don't think I will stick with it at all. But I think over the next few weeks, at least, this should get better. This pain should lessen greatly, and I'll learn more how to deal with it, and I'll get stronger, and I'll get more used to it. And so, as I look at this thing that I hate being here, period, right? As I look at this thing that I hate, the ball starts to unravel when I start to just break it down and see, okay, when I'm walking in and I feel bad or whatever, why is that? What am I thinking about? I'm thinking about the dread of, oh gosh, there's 8 hours. Well, what if I just took the step that was in front of me and just walked this step, and just breathed, and just noticed my body, and just noticed things? And what if I just did it one step at a time? Let's give that a try. And when I am there and I'm super frustrated, and I'm like, okay, I'm super frustrated. I notice it. I'm just going to breathe deep, remind myself I have all the time in the world. Just take one thing at a time. Look at your notes, ask for help, whatever. It's, every little thing can be broken down. So I had this big ball of hate, and I'm breaking it down into little pieces, not so that I can negate my experience, not so that I can give myself a hard time why I'm not tougher, or can't just tough it out, or be strong, or it sucks now, but it'll be better later. All that stuff is for the birds, okay? I'm here because I want to be here, and I'm choosing to be here. And it also gives me a lot of motivation. While I was really, really hating it, it gave me a lot of motivation to look for another job too, and to look at my expectations around work and what I need to do for money. That's a whole nother video. I've been blabbering on about this, but this is big. This is like, ooh, I hate it, and starting to work through that. And maybe you have something in your life like this. I hope not. I hope you don't have something in your life that you hate and that you know, are trying to work through, but who knows? Because, you know, most of it's in our heads, but like I say, the physical pain is a big deal. The weather's a big deal. The learning curve, all of that together, was just making my ball of hate. And so we're just dissolving it a little at a time. And really by validating my feelings and by noticing my feelings and not pushing them away, but taking a few minutes to analyze kind of, okay, what's the thought that preceded this, and where's this coming from? And is it true? And letting myself feel it, you know, I don't want to negate it. I don't want to say, oh, you shouldn't be feeling this. That's not what I'm doing. It's like, oh, I notice this feeling is coming up. Boy, I'm clenching my jaw and I'm feeling really stressed and I'm getting irritated because there's someone walking behind me, which is just a weird feeling. Well, that's not any reason to be irritated. You know, I'll just pull over and let them go by me and just sit here a minute and just kind of process this, right? So it's really just about being present in the moment and seeing what's really going on. But in order to even do that, I had to start breaking things down because I was too overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed with hate for this weather and this place and this job and everything. So it's good to laugh. It's good to not take yourself too seriously, even when we're on these, you know, serious topics. And these are real challenges. You know, it's not just stuff that you make up in your head and that isn't real. It's a real challenge, but the choice is to be here for it. And so when I powerfully make that choice, instead of, oh, I have to be here, I can't leave, if I powerfully make the choice to be here and to learn everything I can from the experience, then that gives me a whole different experience. So I really hope this helps somebody. If you're still here, yay, I'm sending you a ton of love right now. Special thanks to my patrons on Patreon. God, I love you people. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate you greatly. And what else? I think that's enough for an update for today, but have a great one, and I'll talk to you soon.